think that that's an amazing thing. I also think it's interesting when people can turn their heads to any president, no matter what side, that will sign an executive order that violates the Constitution, just turns their head because it benefits their side. And so I'm not disappointed because I'm not surprised how he's been. So,
are you surprised that more of your neighbors voted for him than Trump in this last cycle?
I'm not surprised, just given the county that we're in. There's been a long history of misinformation and warping of the narrative. You know, for instance, you know, somehow Republicans are KKK when that was a Democrat thing. You know, they started that after the Civil War in order to stop people who look like you to vote. You know, same thing with the marriage license, everything. It's all gone back to that, and since then there's been an affront, and the Democrats have a better message, and they're better with messaging to try and convince people that one narrative isn't the truth. You know, and in my opinion, the Republicans are just too nice. You know, they should. I mean, I'm not saying be crazy, but I mean, bring the message forward. You know, you come to us, it's fine. And you know, I had a lot of people knocking on my door. You know, more Democrats than Republicans trying to get my vote, and I think that's one thing that, at least now, especially with the record number of minorities and women that have been elected to Congress on the Republican ticket, they're stopping this fear of going into your neighborhood. Oh, they're not going to listen to me, so why should I go? Which I think is an insane thing. I think that would probably be one of the main reasons why there was some type of lopsidedness.
Do you think the new Georgia voting laws are going to change that at all?
I think that's actually it's an interesting topic. I think that anytime we can pass a law, or, you know, I think according to the Constitution, it's a states' rights issue. You know, the Constitution squarely puts it with the states' legislatures how the elections are held. You know, so, you know, they compare it to Jim Crow, which is just absolute pseudo-intellectual retardedness, to put it simple. You know, Jim Crow there were so many things with that is just, you know, you had to pass the test, had to pass the literacy test, and it's just disingenuous to try and compare one to the other. I think that the Georgia voting law, which I've read actually, is just strengthens more integrity. You know, it makes it more integral. You know, I'm not even a citizen of Georgia. I'm only here to go to school. I received absentee ballots in the mail in my name in Georgia, which makes no sense. And to require somebody to put a state ID number or driver's license number, voting ID number, whatever, on an absentee ballot just seems to make sense. You know, everybody points to racism, but we're the only country where you don't have to show an ID. You know, if you look up Nelson Mandela, he wears a shirt, or he wore a shirt, excuse me, he said, you know, you need ID to vote. It just makes sense. And to sit there, and I think it's offensive to me, which I don't understand why it's not offensive across the spectrum, to sit there and say, hey, there's 4 black people, one of them doesn't have an ID, they can't comprehend how to get an ID, they can't comprehend how to get on the internet. To me, that's just so racially charged, and it's so disingenuous and disrespectful, you know, to your fellow American. How can you look at 1 out of 4 people and say, well, they don't have an ID? They can't do this. They just can't figure it out, so we have to go ahead and make sure that, you know, we have no integrity in the voting system, and oh well. So I think that the new Georgia law would definitely help in that regard, at least make people feel a little bit more secure in the election. So.
Okay. How do you feel about how things are going with COVID and how Biden has been able to try to turn around that?
Well, I mean, it's always good.
Thank you.
I think it's always good when you can take the credit for your predecessor, or when you can blame everything on your predecessor. You know, we saw that with Obama blaming everything on Bush, and we saw that now with Biden taking credit for for everything that Trump tried to set in place. And the fact of the matter is that we would not have even one vaccine if not for Operation Warp Speed, which nobody gives credit to. Like the guy, hate the guy, doesn't matter. You got to give credit where credit's due. You know, if I don't like somebody, I'm still going to give them credit when they're right. It's just that's a decent human thing to do. It's an American thing to do. And I don't see what I take offense to as a constitutionalist and as an originalist is the president, any president, I don't care who it is, any president saying, hey, abide by my executive fiat and you might be able to hang out with your family. You do what we tell you and maybe we will allow you to celebrate 4th of July with your family. I take complete offense to that. I don't think that, well, it's not even a matter of thinking. You read the Constitution, it's very simple. The executive branch, no matter who's in charge of it, doesn't have that power. And so I think that is probably the most offensive part of anything that he's doing, is left and right, just one executive order after executive order in violation of our most basic civil liberties.
How do you feel about the extra stimulus check that many Americans got?
I think it's, see, and I understand there's 2 points to that. Whenever the government will give you back the money that it takes from you, I'm all for it. That's fine. Outside the Article 1, Section 8, 18 enumerated powers, anything that the government takes from you, all that taxation is theft. Everything that is in Washington, D.C., 1/50th of everything should be in your state capital. There's no reason why we should have a redundancy. For instance, we have Department of Education in Georgia. We have one in Washington, D.C. Why are we sending $1 to Washington, D.C. to get 20 cents back? To me, it's just mind-boggling why we allow that to happen. You know, when it comes to stimulus checks, though, I also think it's rather disingenuous. We're sitting here, the negotiations were going on and on. I mean, it started off in the last administration, go big or go home. Don't send me BS. You know, there's no reason why we need to pay for shrimps and treadmills, okay? When we got people starving. That's fine. Let's send them back their money. But that didn't happen. Like this last COVID bill had 9% that actually went to anything related to COVID. We sent money everywhere else, all around the world. Had nothing to do with COVID. And then what do we get? We get a pat on the back. Your average person is getting, what was it, $1,400 the last time? Well, here you go. We're sorry we locked you down for a year. Here's $1,400. Like me again. To me, it's just absolutely asinine, and it's just, I think it's nuts. I think it's crazy. I think the best stimulus, to quote a very important man in history, is a job. And when you're sitting there locking down the economy and wondering why people are going broke and don't have money and say, well, you know, we've done that for 8 months. Here's $1,400. Have a good day. I think that's absolutely, it's stupid. It makes no sense to me. And then on top of that, you sit there and say, well, we're only going to give 9% of that to you. However, we're going to send money to the rest of the world. Absent a treaty, we're going to pay for them. It's just it's stupid.
Is there anything you think the president is doing okay?
Well, I mean, I applaud him for being able to wake up and take a breath in the morning. I mean, that's a good thing. Sure. Again, like I said, I think it's really awesome when you have the leader of the free world defying physics and writing new laws of gravity and falling upstairs. I think that's awesome. That's always great. That's always great. And one thing, and you know what? I hope Bill Maher sees this. You're a moron, dude. Because President Biden is giving us comedy gold every day. Every day. So I think that's probably the best thing he's doing. And I'm really looking forward to watching his joint session. You know, all joking aside, we just saw him being the only leader in the entire world during this, quote, climate change function, wearing a mask on camera when he's like one of 2 people in the room. So he's doing a really good job of making us look weak.
All right. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, perfect timing, man.